Okay, so what I first did is I measured the dimensions from the other wing. So I chose this little tiny intersection here of black checkers and I measured 6 inches from the root edge, and then measured again down here, and the measurement was 12 and something like 5/8 down to this little intersection right here. So I know that that graphic is right now exactly the same as this graphic right here. So now it's just a matter of putting on some black marks with some water soluble marker so that when I put down my graphics I know exactly how to align it. So I've done some on that side, I've done marks on this other side as well. Okay, next thing I do, little trick that I learned from a few folks on Flying Giants to install these Decals Dry is I flip it over, I peel back the backing, and I cut the backing. And then what I do is I cut a little strip of backing off, just like this. Okay? And I reapply the backing. Doesn't have to be exact. I've now got a spot of backing here that's been removed. And so I don't have to worry when I'm applying this Decals Dry that it's going to stick to some place I don't want it to. I just have a small little tiny area right in here that's going to be quite sticky. So if I take my time now and line up these marks that are the marks that are basically right here and right there with what's on the wing, and I push down right here and I rub it, I should be able to stick it down and still be able to work with the rest. Okay, now it's time to start the install. So what I've done is I've cleaned this whole surface here of the wing. So there's no dirt, no lint, because that'll show up. What I do is I line up my marks. I just slowly keep working this down. And if you work at it like this, there will be no air bubbles. Just kind of work it all out towards the edges. There we go. came out right on the money. That's great. Can get rid of these lineup marks now. That's super. Okay, so it's now in place. And as you can see, that's the only thing that is stuck down. This here, I don't have to worry about any issues with it sticking. So what I'll do now is I'll take my time. I will peel back a little bit. Cut out a little bit more of the backing. And now I'm going to just start working it like this. I'm pushing quite hard because I want to make sure that there are no air bubbles. And even, for example, on my big pits, which had the open webbing, I did the exact same thing, and I still pushed quite hard. There. So that's now what we have stuck down. So what I'll do now is take off the rest of the backing and just continue the rest of it. I'm also pulling fairly hard on this. The last thing I want is for the sticky part here that's not down onto the monocoat to droop and it to stick somewhere. Because once this hits the monocoat, it's on there. And as soon as you try to take it off the monocoat, you'll probably get it off, but you'll also pull the monocoat off of the balsa wood. And as soon as it gets hot out, on a nice sunny day, it'll definitely bubble right there. And throughout all this, the last thing I want is for this monocoat job to ever bubble. There we go. And I'm just looking here, see if the camera can zoom in on it. I think you can see that. There's a little intersection here of black square and black square. That intersection was just a little bit ahead of the leading edge, and it on the other wing, and it is on this wing. So I'm probably within about a millimeter of them being exact. Probably less than a millimeter actually. This one worked out better than planned. So what I'll do now is I'm going to flip it around. Just work it around the leading edge. The vinyl is actually extremely stretchable, so even if the leading edge wasn't perfect, you could still stretch it around pretty good. There. Now, see if the camera got that. Yeah. So what I'll do here is, last thing again I want is for that bit to ever come down and fall onto the monocoat. So I just put a little bit of backing there. I get a really sharp X-Acto knife. Really sharp. It's a brand new blade. And I'll just kind of freehand it here. And you just kind of get to know the pressure that you need to get through the vinyl but not through the monocoat. I guess that's kind of the piece that takes a little bit of practice. There we go. Now I'm actually going to save these little pieces, so I'll just stick it onto a piece of backing and throw it away. I'll just rub this down. So when the step then comes to take off the top substrate, it'll easily come off there, and I did not cut through any of the monocoat, so that's good news. Okay, so we're flipped back over. And as we stand right now, that is what's left to go on this piece. You can just feel that there is 0 bubbles anywhere in this piece here. It is just awesome. So, we'll now focus on that area. Okay, so this is what we have left to go here. So again, no different than before. I will peel back a section. Cut it off. And we'll then start working it down. Okay. Okay, so we've come to the hinge line. What I'll do to make sure that nothing sticks where I don't want it to, I'll put a little piece of backing in there. Okay, so we're at the hinge line. Now this is what I like to do. Some people don't like to do this, but I don't like where the graphics end in a hinge line and you see kind of where the graphics end. I like to, if it's trying to be kind of the rip look, I'd rather see it follow the entire hinge line. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to try to actually stick the vinyl down along the hinge line and then back up onto the aileron. And really, it's not that tricky. This vinyl is extremely flexible. Let's make sure that the camera can see that good. So I just take my thumb and I'm just working it around that corner. Nothing fancy at all about it. You just have to kind of let off on pulling quite a bit just to allow it to work in. And what I'm doing is this piece here, I've got it tight against this piece of backing, I've got it tight against the hinge line so that this part right here doesn't stick on the other side and span the hinge line. I want it to go all the way down. So I've got my aileron deflected fully. I'll just keep working this, making sure that my backing paper is tight into the hinge line. Now, might get in the way of the camera here, but I'm taking my thumb, small finger, I'm just trying to work it as far in as I can, and I can actually feel the hinge here, and there's one here, so I know that I'm right down. Okay, and then what I do is I just back the paper up ever so slightly and work it back out on this side. I think I'm pretty much home free there now. Yep, it's gonna come good. And I can feel the edge of the bevel. And make sure that that's a really nice sharp point. Make sure that 0 air bubbles can get in there. I can now close up my hinge cap. There we go. So there's where we stand. Basically went down and in. So I'll just finish taking off my backing material. And now it's home free. I don't know if you noticed as well, but I've actually got the wing sitting on a carton wing bag. Doesn't have to be the carton wing bag, but I know that they're the right size, and because I'm pushing so hard on all this surface, I know I won't dent the wood, but what I don't want is to have something on my workbench and dent the underside. Would not be good. So we're to the trailing edge now of the aileron. What I'll do now is I'll just make sure that I really get a nice sharp bend in the vinyl. I like to also cover the trailing edge. Okay, I do another sharp bend on the other side just to make sure. And if I pull that tight now, I've got it right to the very edge. I'll just grab my knife. There's there's my knife. Okay, again, another sharp hobby knife. And again, you can kind of feel it here. You can actually run your knife along the underside of the trailing edge of the covering. It's all about the angle that you position it at. You can actually use it as a straight edge and just come right through the graphics. There we go. Just push that down. And what I'll do is I'll just get the backing. That's great. I'm pulling the backing basically, I'm not pulling the backing out, I'm pulling it up. Because if I were to pull it out, it would definitely lift the monocoat off the wood. So I'm pulling it back on a basically 180-degree angle. I'll just do that for now. I just want to make sure that that's good, and that's going to turn out just perfect. Nice, tight, perfect, nice and smooth. Good. Great. Okay. Final step then is if you were to try to pull this backing off right now, even if you pulled it this direction, you would surely lift the monocoat off of the balsa, and again in the heat it would bubble. So what I like to use is this stuff called Rapid Tack. Most of these graphic places will sell it. I think it's about $7 a bottle. Money well spent, because what you do is you spray it on top of the paper substrate here. It smells like bubble gum too. That's the best part. And I spray it all on here. I get it nice and wet. And then I usually just make sure that I got all the areas here. I can tell that I've missed a few areas here in the hinge line. And if I let this sit for 5-10 minutes, it'll actually saturate that paper backing. You can already see it even in the 10 seconds that I've been doing this. And then if I pull this way with the paper, it's amazing how easy it comes off. And then I can be sure that the monocoat is still well attached to the balsa. I've got a bubble-free graphic on top and taking the paper off as a breeze. So I'll leave it sit there for a few minutes and come back and be ready to take it off. Okay, so I let it soak for about 10 minutes, the backing material, and then again took the backing material once it was quite saturated with that Rapid Tack and pulled it back across. And so you can see got a nice tight edge here. It followed the hinge line here. There's no bubbles. Everything there is just awesome. And then if I try to see if I can get the glare to show you that there's no bubbles. And the monocoat as well. There's no bubbles or anything, nothing lifted off. So we're good. put on the big Ferrari area, or Ferrari decal. We'll be in good shape.